Perfect. Perfect.
Everyone, just making a quick video here, kind of explaining a recent upgrade I did to my 2005 Honda Civic Si. Really great upgrade for the money. I was in it for about 350 bucks and really could not be happier with it. So I'll just go ahead and kind of start from beginning to end. I picked up these calipers for about $200, actually right at $200. Which is a pretty good deal. They're from an Acura TL Type S. This was specifically a 2007 year. So make sure you're getting the right year. I believe it's 06 to 08 are the ones that you want to get. So after that, I went ahead and started to sand them down because I wanted to paint them. That red really does look great with the Brembo decal. So I sanded them down the best I could. I definitely recommend that you go ahead and, if you can, pay someone to do it, because they're really not easy to sand in between all those little parts. But I was doing this on a budget, so I wanted to see, how cheap it can be done. First thing I picked up was this high temp primer, good up to 2,000 degrees. Should be plenty for brakes. So you can see the can's pretty empty. Then I moved on to this VHT caliper paint, and this can's pretty empty too. And as you see, I mean, I only used one can to coat both of them, and it worked out quite well. Then that Brembo decal. Purchased that on eBay because I was looking for a high temp decal, just in case. I wasn't sure what would happen if I just put a normal one on there. And then after that, that's when you move on to your clear. So use this. This can's actually still pretty full. I didn't need a whole lot of it. I think I did about 2 coats per caliper, and that was pretty much plenty. Definitely, if you can, go ahead and try to cure them before you try to install them on the car. It says that you can drive it and heat up the brakes, and that will cure the paint on the calipers, but the installation process, it is very tough to keep the paint from coming off through bumping it here and there. Kind of learned it the hard way this time, but now I know. Try to cure them maybe in the oven. It says like 200 degrees for, I forget how long, but just go ahead and follow your instructions on the can and you should be fine. So after I painted them, I started collecting my pieces. Not too much that you need. You got your main component, your caliper. Then you want to get the TL Type S, same year as your caliper. The rotor, I was able to get this for about, I think, $65 shipped for the pair. Fairly cheap, but you know what, I haven't had any issues yet, so no complaints there. Then you're gonna need, of course, your brake pads. I got those at O'Reilly's. I went with a semi-metallic just to see how they would work, and also this was on a budget, so they were 25 bucks, and so far they haven't really been noisy, and haven't caused too much dust. You can see a little bit is on here now, but definitely the break-in process, they created a ton of dust, but after that they have been okay. Now I was lucky, my calipers, when I bought them, they already had the hardware with them, and they also had the stock pads with them already, but they were used, so I didn't reuse those. But I did reuse this hardware. Haven't had an issue. I did clean them up with a wire wheel, and they have worked fine so far. Also, the rear caliper bolts that come with this caliper, If you didn't get them with them, then you need to get them, of course, same year, 2000, well, whatever year TL Type S caliper that you got. Like I said, this was a 2007. I believe it's 06 to 08 that came with this caliper setup that works on here just fine. Now those bolts, they're not just going to fit into the stock hole on the knuckle here. So behind here, the two factory holes you're going to need to drill out. Start off with a 1/2 inch drill bit and then move on to a 9/16, and that's all you'll need to do in order to get the bolts to fit through. After I had that done, I went ahead and kind of test fitted the caliper on the hub to see where it would sit in terms of the dust shield here. As you can see, I cut straight down. I had a pair of pliers that was strong enough to cut this metal. That's fairly thin, so you don't really need super strong pliers. But I'll put a picture up of that, kind of just showing the lines I made and then what I cut after. But as you can see, they bolt up quite nicely. The factory brake line, I didn't even upgrade or have to make any modification. I just bolted them right on. I recommend you get new copper rings to seal up the line. And then of course, it bolts straight up here as it should. And make sure that this line is nice and straight. It's not twisted. After that, there's a 5mm spacer you need to put in between here behind the hub, on the hub, and then behind this rotor. If you don't, then this rotor is not going to be centered in between the caliper, which is going to cause issues. It's just not possible. So you need a 5mm spacer. It was like a hub centric one. It doesn't have any studs because it's a very thin piece of metal. Now this upgrade, you need to have a 5-lug setup to do this because this is a 5-lug rotor. Now, after that, I pretty much had everything test fitted. I went ahead and threw my wheel on there to see if it was going to work. These are the factory Type R wheels for this car, and they do hit. You need a spacer, so I have a 15mm spacer here. Just all part of the cost. I do recommend, I'm going to try and find some aftermarket wheels that'll fit without a spacer. Now after that, as you notice, the bleeder screw I have on the bottom. The reason why I have it backwards is because the pistons inside this caliper, they are not the same size top to bottom. This caliper was originally made on a car that had them mounted on the front, where the bleeder would be, of course, up top. So you don't want to have them backwards. So to get around that, I had unbolted it from here. That way I had enough room, and I had the caliper completely off the car with the rotor sitting in between it so that the pads wouldn't, the caliper wouldn't push out too far and basically destroy itself. And then bled the brakes like normal, popping the bleeders. And then I went ahead and once they were completely bled, bolted everything back up like normal, and then that was it. Alright everyone, thanks so much for watching. Just kind of to recap here, all you're going to need is the calipers, of course the brake pads, the rotors, just like a standard brake job. But what you're going to need is a 5mm spacer behind the rotor, whatever spacer you need to clear that new caliper, and that's essentially it. Also, you know, you're gonna need to buy a drill bit most likely to go ahead and go through that knuckle. But that's pretty much it. You know, just bolt it on. Works really well. I didn't do any other modifications, and so far everything's been working just fine. I know there's talk on forums about brake proportioning valves and all different things, but really that's all you need to do right there. So if you got any questions, I'm going to leave my link to my Instagram, or just comment down below, and I'll try and get to it as soon as I can. But for the most part, you know, it's a very simple install, and really well worth the money. And you can do it for cheaper. I mean, it was about $350 for me, but you could probably, if you really try, get it a bit cheaper. Or make it very expensive, get a really nice paint job, and it'll come out real nice and look good for a long time. So thanks again, and stay tuned.